Okay, good morning. Today I'm joined by 3 recipients of the Exemplary Elementary Educator Award from the state of New Jersey. And as many probably saw when we did our press release about it, there are only about 93 recipients in the entire state of New Jersey, and Amanda McGrath, Julie Jagiello, and Mark Weber, 3 Warren Township educators, are among those recipients. So congratulations to all 3 of you. Your previous accomplishments as our Educators of the Year that led to being nominated and selected for this state recognition, very well deserved. I'm happy that you're here this morning to join and share a little bit about your stories, your histories in the Warren Township schools, and how things are going right now. And so, Mrs. McGrath, if we could start with you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience in the Warren Township schools?
Hello, I'm Amanda McGrath. This is my 21st year in Warren Township schools. All of that time I have worked at Woodland School, and I have taught 5th grade, and then most of my time was spent in 3rd grade. And then over the last few years, I had the opportunity to move into the library, and I serve as the librarian here. And I have to say, I have always felt valued here, and I am inspired to do things throughout my career. Things like we've had our students create a timeline of our school. We've done expressive reading showcases to focus on literacy within our student population, and just events throughout now that I'm the librarian that I get to do. That's about it in terms of my career here. So
thank you.
Moving on to Julie, I guess.
Ms. Jagiello, tell us a little bit about your path here in the Warren Township schools.
Hi, my name's Julie Jagiello. I started in Warren Township 8 years ago. When I started, I was in the ABA program in Mount Horeb School, where I spent 4 years, and then I moved here to Central when the program was moved here. And actually, prior to being a certificated staff member here, I did work with Warren Township as an independent consultant from the year about 2005. So I've had quite a long time here, not as long as some of you, but I've enjoyed every step of the way, and I'm so happy that I could become an actual staff member here in the district.
Would you mind just sharing what ABA means for somebody who might be watching and not know what that is?
Certainly. So ABA is the acronym for Applied Behavior Analysis. It is a scientific approach that is also the teaching that term that we use for children with autism. It basically just is a science where you're breaking down whatever you're teaching into smaller teachable units. It's based on reinforcement. It's an amazing science.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Weber.
Hi, I'm Mark Weber. I teach instrumental music at Mount Horeb School and at Central School. I've been doing that for, this is my 4th year doing that. Before that, I was a vocal music teacher at Mount Horeb School, worked with Julie and her students for several years. I've been at the district since 2006. So folks at home can do the math. Before that, I was in Florida, but I was born and raised in New Jersey, so it was always nice to come back. A few years ago, enrolled in the doctoral program at Rutgers and have a PhD in education policy now. And I'm proud to say I'm colleagues with Dr. Mingle. We are on the part-time staff at the GSE. And so it's, I've been here a good long while, but every day is certainly a challenge. And one fun thing for me is making that switch over to instrumental music a few years ago and trying something new. It's been a lot of fun to be able to teach this old dog a couple new tricks. So.
Excellent. And welcome again to all 3 of you. Definitely appreciate having you to share your perspectives today. And going back to Ms. Jagiello, why'd you start in education in the first place? What led you down that path?
Well, I wish I had a more inspirational story. I actually went into college thinking that I was going to be following a business path. And when I was a freshman in college, you were required to take a writing course. And just so happened that this course was based around education. And I had my aha moment in that one particular writing class. And I just decided that, you know, it was actually, we watched Dead Poets Society, and it was one of those things where I just said, I would like to, you know, I would like to follow this career path, and I would like to be a teacher. So that was my aha moment. I know not that inspirational, but I'm so happy, you know, it was that one professor that just really motivated me to go this way. So I'm thankful for that.
And Dr. Weber, how about you?
Funny how we all have our movies, right? Because for me, it's Mr. Holland's Opus. I was a working musician for many years, you know, gigged around and played off Broadway and played cruise ships and toured and did all kinds of things, and fell into a project where I got a grant from an organization called Meet the Composer to work at schools. And I just had the best time doing it. And it came at a part of my life where I was sort of deciding what the next step was going to be. And I had such fun working with the kids that I decided that this was going to be the next career path. So I was actually in Florida at the time. I was very lucky to have enrolled in the program at the University of Central Florida. And like Julie, you know, finding that one mentor in this profession, I think can make a big difference. For me, it was Dr. Mary Palmer, who's generally acknowledged as one of the most prolific and renowned music educators in the country. In fact, she's a co-author on the elementary series that we use here. And Mary really knew how to take someone who knew music and loved music and get them to understand teaching music is different than performing music, even if they run parallel. And so after that, I just never looked back. And as I became more and more aware of what was going on in education, I became more interested in sort of the structures around it and wound up studying that too. But luckily, I was able to do that and continue teaching, which is something I really do love.
I'm keeping track of the movies for the next time I have some streaming time. And Ms. McGrath, how about you? Why did you go into education originally?
I think education and becoming a teacher was something that was started for me as a passion from when I was very young. I'm the youngest of 4 girls, and play early on was always playing school. And it was how we played. There was always the teacher and the students. And because I was the youngest of 4, I had to always be the student. And that desire to always want to be the teacher, but, you know, being on the lower end of the hierarchy, I didn't always get that chance. And so when I did get to make the worksheet or teach my older sisters, it always had this feeling of pride that I was able to be the teacher. Also in elementary school, I was educationally a late bloomer, and learning didn't come easy. I found that early on, reading was a challenge, and I was the youngest in my grade, and I found that I was always having to work a little harder to keep up. And so when I was thinking about what I wanted to do, I always kind of knew I wanted to teach, but I knew that I wanted to also help and work with kids that like really, you know, are smart kids, but that needed a little bit more to make it natural in terms of, you know, moving down the road learning. So I think that when I wanted to when I really pursued it as a career, you know, after high school and going into college, literacy was one of the areas that I really wanted to focus on, because reading was a struggle for me. And now oddly enough, I'm a librarian. So obviously, I've moved forward, but I understand how it's not easy for everyone on the path, and getting kids to meet their personal goals and to keep moving forward is really important. And I wanted for all of my students always to have their level of success and not to feel frustrated and not to look down on themselves as a non-learner, but to always be moving forward in their learning.
As we move into the next question, I think the diverse roles that you represent in the district will be really interesting to see how the experience has been. So Dr. Weber, starting with you, what's been the most challenging aspect of teaching, especially teaching music in a COVID-19 environment?
First of all, I think that's a really interesting point that, both Julie and Amanda and myself, we do have these roles that are different than the classroom teacher role. And I think one of the things I hope that maybe is a silver lining coming out of this is just how our understanding that school is more than just a classroom. It's a community, and there are a lot of people with a lot of different roles in this community. For me, it really comes down to two things. Obviously, I've thought about this a lot. The first is that I'm not physically in the room with the kid. We made a decision based on research that has come out, particularly with woodwind players, that unfortunately it is playing an instrument can be a transmitter of the virus, and a pretty profound one. Singing, unfortunately, there have been documented instances of choirs singing that have become super spreader events. So we made the decision that we would do all of the instruction remotely during the time when either the kids were at home in the afternoon, or when the kids who are in the cohort that isn't here are at home. And so I don't get to actually go up to the kid and move her wrist so that it's straight when she's playing the violin, or get right next to him and say, no, hold the trumpet up like this, not down at the floor. It's frustrating. And we're doing the best we can. I've had to adjust expectations. I've had to remind myself that the most important thing that I can get across right now is that music is fun. And if we can instill that, then we'll clean up all the other problems when we get past this virus. So that's the first thing. And that's related to the second thing, where we have not had the fun of making music together, which is really, really hard, because that, to me, is where the joy is. That's the joy that I have when I play with other musicians, or when I'm leading the kids in an ensemble. That's the fun. That's why we put in all of the work. There's a sense of accomplishment that I think the kids have just playing by themselves, and so I've tried to heighten that. But boy, we really miss playing together, and hopefully we're getting close to the place where we can start thinking about doing that again. So those have been really the two biggest challenges for me.
Thank you. And Ms. McGrath, how about for you? I know both in the library, but also you've been supporting a grade level team as well.
Yeah, so while I have been the librarian in the past, this year, I think, one of the challenging aspects is making sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students. And that might mean that we have to take our personal, roles and really, put our professional, job titles slightly aside to really just address the needs of the kids. We all got into this because of our passion for teaching and our desire to want our children to be successful. So this year, while I'm not in the role of librarian, I am a teacher in third grade. Luckily, I taught third grade for 13 years. So a lot of it is, getting right back on the bike and, not needing training wheels. it has been a challenge. I think one of the things is, like, as teachers, there's that personal relationships that sometimes can be a little bit tricky through a screen. You know, kids enjoy the high five, the pat on the back, the handshake when you greet them in the morning. Some of that, you know, you miss. You have that interaction with students. So one of the challenges is sometimes you have to bring that excitement and that personal connection with kids through a screen, which they are very receptive to, but it is a different way of going about it to make sure that we're meeting the needs. Luckily, in my role, I've been able to pull small groups. So I get to have a little bit of that just, you know, personal conversation about, oh, you know, tell me about your weekend and what's going on in your life. What are you frustrated about? What are you feeling really successful about? So I tend to work with small groups. And when I work with the small groups, I get to have conversations that when you're in a larger Google Meet, it is difficult when everyone's, you know, having to like answer a question and unmute and mute back. So that is a bit of, you know, I guess one of the most challenging parts of right now. But again, like Mark said, you know, hoping for the light at the end of the tunnel, and that, you know, things we will be able to start opening up again and having more opportunities for in-person stuff.
Thank you. And Mr. Jagiello, what's been the most challenging aspect for you and your students?
I have to agree with what both Amanda and Mark said. I feel that, you know, in general, I think of with my classroom being a little bit different and having 6 students. And, you know, with my students, many of them learn one-on-one as opposed to even groups, although we have some groups, you know, socially distanced now. But, you know, I need to meet the needs of each student, and each student is at a completely different level. They're at a different grade. I need to create and develop programming, and I need to implement what's going to be effective for them. So although that's typically a challenge, and I need to look at each child's unique learning style, now when we add on top of that, that I need to do this through a screen, you know, I kind of pride myself that in 24 years, I have a toolbox, and these are all my strategies, and these are all my tools, and this one didn't work. All right, use this one, use this one. It's a constant, you know, changing of trial and error, and this one's not working. But now when we're doing it on a screen, like, okay, well, what am I going to use on a screen that's going to allow them to access the curriculum or what I'm even teaching? So for me, I need to make sure that I'm learning. What can I do? What can I do? What can I research? Can I use Jamboards? Can I use the, you know, so it was a kind of a struggle of finding like what's going to work. And even if I found what was going to work for one child, maybe for one particular program that I'm implementing, that doesn't generalize to it happening for everything else I'm trying to teach or for every other student. So it is kind of feeling like, what can I do? What am I going to be able to do to help them meet? As Amanda said, I need to make them feel successful, and I need to make a connection. And being on a screen, and like you said, so many things are hands-on, whether it is, you know, and again, you can't even do, even if you're in person, you can't do the high fives and you can't do all those things. Or for my younger ones, you know, I can't tickle you, or we can't both play with the Play-Doh. So there are so many of those little things that just needed to be readjusted. You know, I think of, you know, how can I be motivating and what toys can I have? And even for students in my class that are present, you know, and we earn certain things and we're reinforced for breaks, you know, now there are only certain things you can have access to at this point in time, because again, you know, safety is a main concern. So it's kind of readjusting everything. I mean, on the positive note, we figure it all out. But it is challenging to figure it all out and make sure that we are meeting the needs of each and every single student.
And all three of you, probably because of who you are as educators and people, spun that question a bit to even start talking about the positives, even while you were given the chance to talk about what's challenging, which I appreciate. But let's build on that. Just share an area of success you've had with your students during this time period. And Ms. McGrath, would you start for us?
Well, I find success in every day from my students. As you know, in math, we're doing multiplication and we're making progress in my small class that I teach for math. I have a small reading group that we had the opportunity to do a readers theater, and we did it on the days that they were home. So it was fun because they each had their part, and we did it in a Google Meet, and we recorded it, and each kid had their part of the play. And then when it was recorded, I was able to put it back so that their parents could see it. And the children were so excited to be able to share that. Whereas if we were doing a readers theater and working on expressive reading and reading with fluency, we may have done that in school and not recorded it and sent it home. But the kids that were in the class the next day were like, can we do another one? My parents really liked it. And there was just an excitement that they felt that they, had an opportunity to do something, creative and voices, and then being able to share that with their families. So I found that was something, it was fun, and the kids want to do another one already. And it's a great way to build their fluency as readers, as well as how they expressively read. So I would say I felt pretty good about that.
That's great. Thank you. And Ms. Jagiello, how about you? An area of success?
I think that just establishing new routines, I think that especially for children on the spectrum, that when you need to introduce something new or to address a change, it's a very complicated thing. It's a very challenging thing. But if the students are here at school or if they're learning remotely, every single one of them is adapted to what is new this year. I think that, you also learn certain coping skills with this. So how do we deal with things being different and new? I think that we've had the opportunity to address a lot of those social, emotional coping skills and different things like that. So I think that overall, them just adjusting to all of this has been successful. And similar to what Amanda said, a big part of ABA is, you shape behaviors and you appreciate all of those steps along the way. Even if we know that our ultimate goal is up here, I am reinforcing and appreciating every single one of those steps, because you need to reinforce all those steps along the way. So similar to what Amanda said, I think it's the small successes and those little steps that lead to the bigger things.
Great. And Dr. Weber.
So every year for over 40 years, every elementary band concert in Warren Township has ended with the song, Let's Go Band, which is actually Let's Go Blue, which is one of the fight songs for the University of Michigan. So my apologies to all the Rutgers alums out there. Yes, we do play another Big Ten song, sorry. It was clear when we initially transitioned to distance learning last spring, we weren't going to be able to have a concert. So I made a play-along track of Let's Go Band. We uploaded it through Flipgrid, which is one of the video tools that we use. Every kid played his or her part along with that track. I downloaded them all, synchronized them as best I could, and made a video that showed everybody playing their part at some point. And so we have an uninterrupted streak in Warren Township for over 40 years now of playing Let's Go Band every spring. We've not broken the streak. Are things different? Yes. Will we ever get back to normal? I don't know what's normal in education, but we can still have some continuity. We can still keep some traditions. We can still keep some of the things that make school an important place, a fun place for kids. And that was probably our biggest triumph through all of this.
And I know, so we're recording this very first thing in the morning, and I know you all have students arriving in just a few minutes. So apologize for that, but I do want to ask the last question, which I think is a good reflection one to close on, which is, when your students think back on this time they had with you in this setting, you know, someday in the future, what do you hope they'll remember about you and your work together? And we'll start with Ms. Jagiello.
I think that I would hope that the students and the parents would look back and think that during a time when there were so many unknowns, that they felt confident and comforted in the fact that I was there to be able to support them the entire way, whether it be academically or socially or emotionally, that was something that was a constant in a time where there were so many unknowns.
Thank you. And Dr. Weber.
The first thing is that I want them to always remember that music is fun and to have a love of music. I've been saying to the kids, you're really lucky right now because you have no excuse to be bored. Yeah, there's always something to do. You can always go pick up your instrument and play. And yeah, again, we haven't had that fun of making music together, but there is a joy in music in and of itself. And I hope that they've been able to feel that. The second thing is, one of the reasons I'm such a big advocate for music education is it teaches perseverance. If you work hard and if you're diligent, you will get better. There's no way you can't get better if you're practicing diligently every day. And I think that's a lesson that we really need right now. In the way the world is, you know, given all of the challenges that we face as a nation right now, I think it's really important to get across to kids that if you work hard, you can overcome anything. And I think that's a real important message for us here down at the front lines of education to be imparting to our students.
Thank you. Ms. McGrath.
And going along with Mark, and I'd like to, with everyone here, it's twofold. So if I may not be, I'm going to answer kind of two parts of the question. When I want our students to look back at this time, and not just first selectively with me, but I want them to have pride in the fact that they had grit through it all. And grit is really a life skill. Things are not just always going to be easy. I see this with my own children. I have 4. And like Mark said, the perseverance every day, it's hard. It is hard to be learning remotely. It's hard to be learning without the hands-on. But every kid in Woodland and Warren are making progress, and they are sticking with it. And with the support of our staff and parents and themselves, they are really persevering, and they are really showing that from kindergarten through 8th and beyond, that they have grit that maybe, you know, we didn't know if they would be able to do this. So I hope that they have a sense of pride and a sense of, wow, I was able to learn during a pandemic. You know, like, you know, when they look back, you know, and they tell their stories, you know, they have many of these students, like the screen, they're having to stay focused where it's really difficult. Now, in terms of what I want them, like answering your question, what I want them to remember about me is, I just want them to know that they were cared about and they were loved. And I love my job, but the kids in this district, I love them and I want them to be successful. And I feel very passionate that I just want them to understand and know that we're all making sacrifices this year. We're all doing what is a little uncomfortable. But the end game is that the staff in Warren care immensely about the students. And I want my students to know that they were cared for. And I want them to feel that and that to come across.
No, I can't sum it up better than you just did, Mr. McGrath. So I'll close by saying thank you to all 3 of you for taking so much time this morning when you have a million other things you need to get done as well, and you have kids about to come through the door. Congratulations on the well-deserved recognition. But even beyond that, I think the stories you just shared kind of speak to what Mrs. McGrath sort of just summed up about what everybody in the district is doing to make sure that students are learning and that we're able to get the doors open and keep them open and make sure people are safe, but kind of keep moving things along. And the students and their families are better for having you as educators in their lives. So again, thank you for your time this morning and congratulations.
Thank you.